We now return to Toronto's Kensington Market for a conversation with the Prime Minister.
The wail of air raid sirens in Ukraine and the horrors of war forced Canada to follow its NATO allies and take a united stand against Russia, accused of war crimes.
Canada stands with Ukraine. Canada stands with its allies against this aggressive Russian positioning.
When we talk about war crimes, we cannot forget that the worst of crimes is war itself.
Russia is not achieving its strategic objectives. Ukraine can win this war.
Putin and his accomplices will fail. Ukraine will prevail. Slava Ukraini.
In a couple of months, we'll be approaching the one-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine, the Russian invasion on Ukraine, and Canadians continue to watch in horror what's unfolding there. Despite the unified stand that NATO has taken and Vladimir Putin's battlefield losses, the conflict continues. Why hasn't NATO been able to stop this war? What will it take?
Well, first of all, NATO's not in this war. Ukraine is a friend, but they're not a NATO country. Our support for Ukraine is based on, first of all, Canada's deep friendship and long-time historical ties with Ukraine. Our support for principles of territorial integrity and sovereignty and the UN Charter that Russia violated with its continued invasion of Ukraine. We will continue as friends and allies and supporters of Ukraine to be there with weapons, with equipment, with support, with humanitarian aid, with financial support to keep the lights on in the government. We will continue to stand with Ukraine as long as it takes, because Ukrainians are not just fighting for their democracy and their right to choose their future and their territorial integrity. They're fighting for the principles that underpin all of our countries.
There has been so much international pressure against Vladimir Putin, but he remains entrenched. What do you think it'll take?
I think we're seeing from the Russian sides, from things that are trickling out despite all the misinformation and disinformation that Putin continues to feed Russian citizens. There is a fatigue around the war. There is real concern about the continued mobilization of people from the small villages across Russia, and there is tiring. They are tiring of it. Ukraine stands strong. In my conversations, including very recently with Vladimir Zelensky, he's pointed out there is a plan for peace. It is something we are all working for, but it will be not on Russian terms, it'll be on Ukrainian terms, because Russia made the terrible miscalculation of thinking they could invade a peaceful neighbor and get away with it. And it's not just important for Ukraine, it's important for the world that we stand up against it. And quite frankly, the way Canadians have responded and the unity around that, purchasing $500 million of sovereignty bonds that we admitted for Canadians to support Ukraine, but also the way we're stepping up around the world to support countries that are more vulnerable to Russia and Russian influence with food, with fuel, with other measures, is bringing the world together, and Canada's playing an important role on that.
And Canada has opened its doors to Ukrainians. There are about 130,000 who have arrived in this country. Your government has set a target of 500,000 permanent residents by 2025. The Ukrainians have come in under a temporary resident process, a special process. If those Ukrainians who are here under that temporary process then choose to become permanent residents, what does that do to that 500,000 target? Is this in addition to that previously determined target?
Certainly, some of them will choose to stay, but I know from talking with many of them, most of them are looking forward to going home and rejoining their husbands and fathers and communities and rebuilding Ukraine. Canada will absolutely be part of that. If people want to stay, we have, as you mentioned, increased our immigration targets significantly, so there will be room.
So is that on top of the 500 if they stay?
I don't know that we've exactly determined that yet. We have the targets that we've put forward. We'll see how many Ukrainians choose to stay in Canada.
Your government has also set a target of 40,000 Afghans in this country. And
At least 40,000, yes.
26,000 have arrived so far. There is a perception that Ukrainians are being welcomed into this country faster than Afghans are. And I say that with the caveat that they're separate streams. But why is it taking so long? I mean, your government has said that it's complicated, but we've spoken to many Afghans who say their biometrics are done, their applications are approved, but they still can't get to Canada.
From where?
What is they're in Islamabad.
Okay.
So why is that taking so long?
Well, first of all, as you say, there are many Afghans who fled to neighboring countries who are looking to come onto Canada or other places. And Canada, as you pointed out, has stepped up to a greater degree than just about any other country in terms of welcoming Afghans to Canada who are fleeing the Taliban. There's no question about that. We've done as much as any other country, and we're going far beyond most countries, even on an absolute basis, not just a per capita basis. We are also very concerned about getting people out of Afghanistan, though. That is a much more difficult situation because getting them out from under a Taliban government that doesn't want to give them travel documents, that doesn't want to facilitate their departure, will require us to continue to work there. But we're not going to give up on those Afghans who weren't able to escape Afghanistan if we do have a duty of care of a responsibility to, and we have too many of them.
And when that target of 500,000 is met, when that announcement was made by our government, there were a lot of people still waiting for an announcement on housing, a national housing strategy. When people come into this country, they need some place to live and stay.
Oh, first of all, we announced our national housing strategy back in 2017.
But when you have 500,000 immigrants coming into this country, what more supports will be given to increase supply? Or can you even do that?
Well, one of the limits on increasing supply right now is a shortage of workers in construction, a shortage of workers in communities across the country, which can be solved by immigration. So it's something we have to do responsibly and make sure they're aligning, but we know that immigration grows the economy, it grows communities, it creates opportunities, it creates jobs. I mean, this is one of the great blessings of serving Canada as leader is that I don't have to spend my time justifying why immigration is good for Canada, because Canadians know that, unlike many of our fellow democracies where there are real strong dynamics against immigration. We have the benefit of saying, yes, we're going to manage it well, we're going to bring people in, they're going to continue to build our cities as they always have, and build better futures for themselves, their families, and all of us along the way.
Next.
Canada is positioned to be a reliable, clean, responsible supplier to Asia of raw materials, of manufactured goods. That is very exciting.
When a conversation with the Prime Minister continues.